ESPN named Sidney Crosby the MVP of the decade. They're kind of doing their decade awards teams, and they named Sidney Crosby the MVP of the decade in the NHL, which is pretty tough to argue, except he was the MVP once in the last decade.
So
I'm not look. Sidney Crosby's the MVP of the last 10 years, but
there's a but in there.
It's not as. I don't think it's.
There's a but for me.
It's not as clear cut.
Agreed.
I think as people might think.
Agreed.
What do you think? Who do you think?
I think it is Sidney Crosby, but I think he just edges out Ovechkin.
Right.
Just. So individual awards, Gord.
Yeah.
Sidney Crosby has 12 individual major awards in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Ovechkin has 17.
Right.
He led
the league in goal scoring 7 times.
8 Rockets.
Yeah. Sorry, 8 times?
8 times.
8 times, right.
Yeah, now one of them may be before the decade, actual decade, but this is in his tenure. He's got 8 Rockets. 8 Rocket Richards. Now, here's what I found most interesting. They've each won 7 different awards.
Right.
So it's not that they're just dominating in one.
Well, Ovechkin scored 495 goals. So we're taking the 09-10 season to last season, those 10 years. Ovechkin scored 495 goals in those 10 years. That's 102 goals more than any other National Hockey League player. Steven Stamkos is second.
It is absolutely remarkable. So while Sidney Crosby, for me, is the MVP of the last decade,
it's
boy, Ovechkin is right there screaming at him.
So part of doing the awards is you got to do your all-star team. So give me your NHL all-star team for the last decade.
Okay.
So Crosby at center, if he's the MVP.
Starting at center, the MVP is Sidney Crosby. Okay. 12 major awards, as I said. On the right side, or the left side, my right shooting, Alexander Ovechkin.
Okay.
And you know what? I did factor Stanley Cups into this as well. And
yeah, I think that's dangerous.
I know.
It's a dangerous game because I would say this.
Okay. I factored it in. All my guys don't have a Stanley Cup.
Okay.
But I factored it in.
Okay.
So Sidney, obviously, 3 Stanley Cups in his tenure. And Ovi gets the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
2 years ago. And that's a big factor for me. The third one I think is going to be different from yours, but I'm not sure. So on my right wing, I have a left shooting Patrick Kane.
I have that.
You do?
Yep.
So our forwards are exactly the same.
We have the same forwards.
Okay.
Your defense, I saw, was...
So Patrick Kane, 5 individual awards, major awards, and 3 Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
And that dynamic and that special, and you talked about rebuilding teams around a core of players. Really just an amazing career. And I watched him come in. I questioned with Denny Savard when they drafted him. I remember having a conversation with Denny Savard saying, he's really small, Denny. And Denny saying, but so was I, and he's really special.
He was a first-team All-Star 3 times in the decade. Yeah, absolutely. Your defense is...
Who would have been in the next
Stamkos
band conversation?
Steven Stamkos.
Okay, I had Gino right there, Malcolm.
Yeah, Evgeny Malkin. Nick Backstrom.
Wow. I didn't have Backstrom. I had both Taves and Joe Thornton.
Yeah.
Joe Thornton,
But
interestingly enough, not as many on the wing. I was pretty loaded at center.
Yeah.
I had Patrice Bergeron in a conversation.
Yeah. John Tavares.
Yeah. A lot of centermen.
Yeah.
A lot of centermen. And on the wings, I really didn't have a whole lot.
Okay, your defense.
Okay.
Now, I was surprised by this. Go ahead.
Duncan Keith.
Yeah.
And 2 Vezinas, a Conn Smythe.
2 Vezinas.
2 Vezinas, 2 Norrises. Could have won the Vezina. 2 Norrises, a Conn Smythe, 3 Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
Really remarkable. Zdeno Chara.
Okay. I'm with you, sort of. I'm
dominant. Absolutely dominant.
Absolutely.
I'm factoring in how much you hate to play against him.
Yeah.
His longevity has been remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
He's only won 1 Norris, which is surprising to me. And it's not an award that's been dominated. There's been 2 two-time winners in the last time. Pushing Chara closely was Erik Karlsson for me.
So I have, okay, and then your goaltender is?
CP31, Carey Price.
Carey Price. And the coach is Joel Quenneville, right?
Joel Quenneville.
Okay, so my team is the same as yours up front. I've got Kane on the right wing, Ovechkin on left wing, Crosby in the middle. I have Duncan Keith on defense with Erik Karlsson. I think if my first All-Star team defenseman over the last decade is probably Karlsson.
Ahead of Keith.
Yeah, Duncan Keith's a great player, don't get me wrong. But I think Erik Karlsson's my first team All-Star defenseman.
Wow.
He was, I mean,
he is firmly emblazoned in my brain was covering him as close as we did a couple of years ago when he had that run in Ottawa. I mean, we were at all the games.
He dragged it, but I mean, but he just
willed them, dragged them, pushed them, prodded them.
Tremendous. Now, but interesting that the guys that we overlooked here, in addition to, so I don't know, Chara, what about Shea Weber? Like you want hard to play against.
In my next grouping, I had Ryan Suter. I had Shea Weber. Chris Letang is in there somewhere.
I got Brent Burns
and Vlasic.
What about Dustin Byfuglien?
Yeah.
Like that's...
Yeah, I think Buff gets caught a little bit between forward and defense.
Yeah, because he played both positions.
Yeah, he played both positions.
So I have Carey Price in goal as well. I can make a very strong case for Pekka Rinne here. So both Carey Price and Pekka Rinne won the Vezina Trophy once in the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
Price was a top 5 vote getter for the Vezina 4 times.
Yeah, that's significant.
Rinne was a top 3 vote getter 4 times.
You know who came into my mindset as well? Marc-Andre Fleury.
Well, how about the only guy to win 2 Vezinas in the last decade? Sergei Bobrovsky.
Not even a consideration for me as the top goalie of the last decade.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
but
he just wasn't.
But twice in that decade,
I love consistency, and his down years were down.
His off years were bad. No question about it.
His off years were bad.
And my coach is Joel Quenneville as well. But I really went back and forth on Pekka Rinne versus Carey Price.
Yeah.
What tips it for me, and this maybe this shouldn't count, but Carey Price internationally.
Yeah, and as simple as for me, I'm standing behind the bench. Who do I want to win the game for me? I mean, and I feel better about Carey Price.
Well, we say that, but I think there's some local bias there too. We know him; he's Canadian. You know, Pekka Rinne is not as known. I mean,
I'm even more biased after watching him as close as I did this year.
Yeah,
and he was really good.
He's good. And at the end of the day, he's my pick.
Yeah,
but Pekka Rinne has had a tremendous career in Nashville.
So you wouldn't factor Fleury into that conversation?
I think the thing with Marc-Andre Fleury is you go by wins. And I'm really, this is my kind of thing about wins. I want to see the day when wins for pitchers, starting quarterbacks, and goaltenders are no longer a factor. Because it plays into how good your team is. So
when I'm looking at a goalie, here's what I want out of my goalie. I want him to give up one less goal than the guy at the other end. So I'm not as concerned with save percentage or goals against average. I'm concerned with wins.
Okay, so you're telling me. Let me ask you this then. Okay, so goalie A allows 3.5 goals per game, but his team scores 4 per game, so he racks up 40 wins.
Yeah, his name's Grant Fuhr.
Right. Goalie B gives up 2.5 goals a game, but his team scores 2. He wins 20 games.
Yeah.
I want the goalie that gives up 2.5 per game.
I'm paid for wins.
I want this.
I want to win 40 games.
I want the guy with the better save percentage because I think if you take that goalie off the team that scores 2 goals per game and put him on the team that scores 4.
Yeah, but you don't get to do that.
No, but I'm just saying
what you got to deal with.
That does happen. The goaltenders do move around. Like Dominik Hasek was a great goaltender everywhere he played, even though he didn't always get the wins because the teams weren't as good.
Right.
I'm big on save percentage. Like save percentage to me is big now, and obviously it's been narrowed down now. Save percentage in terms of high danger chances,
exactly.
Even strength save percentage.
It can be misleading if you're playing against a volume shot team.
Right, but at the end of the day, I think wins can sucker you. I think goalie wins can sucker you.
Well, I'm just telling you when I'm with an organization or I'm coaching a team, what I want.
Yeah,
and that I want mentally a goalie that can play in either a 2-1 game or a 7-6 game, and still find a way to win. And to me, that was clearly Grant Fuhr. I mean, he could, he could win a 2-1 game for you. There's no question about it, and did it several times. But he wasn't, he didn't get flustered with a 7-6 win either. Like he didn't. And in a 7-6 win, he might make 3 saves that won that game 7-6 for you.
Right.
And a different day and age and a different game was being played, and he played behind, one of the most powerful offensive teams in the history of the game, and he won.
Who, for you, any doubt about Joel Quenneville?
No.
None for me either.
No, there's really not. And I'm really intrigued to see what happens when he goes to Florida this year. Because I'm not sure about Florida's defense. I'm not as sold on their defensive group as other guys are. I think they've got a good group up front. But what Joel Quenneville did very well was manage. And coaching and managing are 2 different things. And I think baseball has that right at the highest level, that they call their boss the manager.
Right.
Bill Belichick's a manager.
Right.
That's what he is, right?
Yeah.
Joe Torre was a manager. And he wasn't deciding, he wasn't teaching Derek Jeter how to lay a bunt down the third baseline. He simply wasn't. He was deciding whether Rodriguez should sit beside Derek Jeter in the locker room and where they should bat.
Right.
And so the manager aspect of it, I think, is really important. I think Joel is a really good manager of situations, of
he's also intense enough. Like he's intense to get guys going. I think he recognizes the differences between players. Funny, he's not been tapped to coach an He's been an assistant coach in the World Cup team, but
yeah. So he's had good off seasons.
yeah. I think Florida's going to be pretty good. I think Bobrovsky makes a big difference.
Do you think their defense is good enough?
I don't know that, but I think
Keith Yandel is going to put up points in the power play. That's what he's going to do.
And play a bunch of games in a row.
And he's going to get scored against a lot.
It's funny, I think his consecutive game streak in some ways works against him. Because he doesn't put himself in harm's way very often.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't.
No, he doesn't. I don't think that group, as it's put together right now, and they could very well make changes, I don't think they're good enough. Strawman's actually a nice addition to the group coming across.
Yeah, Mike Matheson's a good player.
Across the Florida. Yeah, a little too high risk for me.
You're so old school hockey.
Thank you.
You're so old school
Thank
hockey.
you. I love Erik Karlsson.
Well, he's a high risk player.
Yes, he is.
No, his high end
Yes, he is.
His high end is big.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yeah, there's not enough. Matheson is someone that I see more than I get. There's more. I think there's more there than we've seen. Now, maybe that Joel will get it out of them, or that group will get it out of them.
So ESPN says Crosby's the MVP of the last 10 years.
So I don't know what ESPN, did they do a team?
No.
Okay.
Who's your Norris Trophy winner the last 10 years? I'm guessing you'd have Duncan Keith.
I'd have Duncan Keith.
I'd be Erik Karlsson.
Yeah.
Who's your Selke top defensive forward? Patrice Bergeron.
No question.
No
He's
question.
won 5 of them?
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, he is. And 4 Selkes he's won. And Bergeron pushes for the team overall too. I mean, he and my team, if I'm going 3 lines deep, the centermen are going to be really good. I'm going to move a centerman to the wing. It's
funny when you think about the Vancouver Olympics, he hardly played. Mm-hmm. He and Seabrook barely played. Oh. Brent Seabrook played, I think, like 11, 12 minutes
9 years ago.
Yeah. You think back to the 05 World Junior team in Grand Forks. 6 of those guys, 14 of them played in the NHL the next year. 6 of them played in the Olympics 5 years later. 6 guys in that team played in the Olympics 5 years later. Crosby, Bergeron, Perry, Seabrook, Keith, and Mike Richards.
And that's coming a lot of that's coming from the fabled draft class too of your 2013.
Of 03, which we've talked about. The reason those guys were so great was the lockout, and they had to go back and play junior or college or play in the American League. Mm-hmm. So there's your team. I'm pretty, that's Sidney Crosby is fascinating to me because he's so good every night. Like
the consistency is a huge part of it.
His engine is just.
He's as good a player every night as Ovechkin is a scorer every night.
Right.
Like Ovechkin might not play that way every night, but he scores every night.
The way, I think it's a great compliment, and I've said this to him. He's the greatest grinder in the history of the National Hockey League. Mm-hmm. Because he just grinds. He doesn't beat you with his. I mean, he's obviously a good skater, but he just grinds.
I think I've shared the story with you that my assistant coach, watching him play the Subway midget team when he was in 9th grade. Did I tell you this?
Yeah.
We offered him a full scholarship at Notre Dame in 9th grade.
So he was 13?
He was 13, and we were recruiting another defenseman from the team, a defenseman who was a 12th grader. Real good player. He ended up going to the Q. And my assistant coach every time he'd see them, he'd say, "Oh, you should see this little 9th grader. You should see this little 9th grader."
You're like a 9th grader, come on.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. He said, "No, he's going to Shattuck St. Mary's next year. He's going to prep school in 10th grade," which was a little bit of an unusual route back then. And he said, "Can we offer him?" And I said, "Get his grades." And so we got his grades, and Sidney Crosby had straight A's across the board. And we presented them to admissions, and they were not in the business of giving out college commitments to 13-year-olds. And they said conditionally, if he maintains his grade point average, he's on track. That's what they would let us tell him. So we offered him.
He's got the letter still.
He's got the letter. Yeah. He has the letter.
Yeah, he has.
Dad kept the letter.
Yeah, jokes about it. I'll tell you my favorite Sidney Crosby story, which is in 2016. I went up there. I go to his hockey school every summer, do a bit with him.
Are you getting better?
No.
Oh, you don't go to his hockey school?
I don't go on the ice. I just go
I thought you said you were going to his hockey school.
And so they won the Cup in 16, so he's got the Stanley Cup, and we went to a children's hospital, which is, pretty emotional. We were done there, and Sid said, "Well, where else could we go?" I said, "Well, there's a veterans hospital I went to once around the corner." So we called over, went over there, and they've got everyone's covered in the main meeting room, and someone said, "Oh, too bad Joe's not here. Joe would have loved this, and Joe would love this." And someone said, "Who's Joe?" And they said, "He's a Korean War veteran, but he's blind and bedridden. He's upstairs." So Sid said, "Let's go." So up we go, and they knock on the door at his room, and Joe, Sidney Crosby's here with the Stanley Cup. And Joe says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Sid. I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan."
It's a nice introduction.
And Sid says, "No problem. Who's your favorite Montreal Canadian?" He says, "Rocket Richard." So Sid brings the cup over and traces his finger over the Rocket's name engraved.
Wow. Yeah. How great is that?
Yeah. So
that's good stuff.
That's a guy that, I think the
guy that gets it.
Yeah. Of all the things, I've seen him, obviously socially and behind the scenes. I don't know many people have met Sidney Crosby that have come away going,
mm-hmm. Well, to the first part of you, I don't know many people that have met Sidney Crosby. I really don't. Talk about keeping an incredibly low profile.
Yeah, he does a lot. I mean, he does a lot of stuff for charity. He
does a lot of stuff in his home area. Yeah, but really,
but imagine this. So he had a party. He's got a beautiful home on a lake north of Halifax in Cole Harbour. And at his party, they put out searchlights to shine out from the.
So you could find his party
from the shore. No, I thought it was because there was going to be a band playing on the dock. No, it was to stop people from taking pictures. Because people would dock would anchor their boats offshore of his cottage and just sit there and watch him eat.
It's a pretty good strategy, actually.
So they put the searchlights out so that people couldn't take long lens pictures of his party guests. But imagine people like getting their family together, getting in a boat, dropping an anchor down. Let's watch Sidney Crosby and his friends eat dinner.
You know what? He's kept such a incredibly low profile
in the era of social media.
Unbelievable.
In the era of social media, camera phones. Everything else.
Awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Power to him.
But he signs, he signs autographs. Mm-hmm. He does all the bit, and he never. I can't recall. He slashed Mark Mathot in the finger and gave someone a slash in the giblets.
Yeah, I was there when he chopped off Mathot's finger.
Yeah, we were doing that game.
That's right.
But I mean, yeah, he's competitive as heck.
Of course he is. Can't play at that level and not be.
But I remember, he turned 30 in '87. And they had a big party for him that night, and the whole bit. And the next morning at 8 a.m., he's in the gym.
Turned 30 in 2017.
What did I say?
87.
So he's born in 87. Sorry, in 2017. Yeah, correct. He would not have turned 30 on his on the day he was born.
On his birthday.
On the day he was born. No. 8/7/87. Born on August 7th, 1987.
$8.7 million. The best cap deal in the world.
The most underpaid player in the league.
Yes. And we've just deemed him the best player of the last decade.
But it's given Pittsburgh flexibility.
Yes, it is.
It's allowed them. Now, when his deal kicked in and Malkin's deal kicked in, don't forget Pittsburgh circa 2010, 11, 12.
They went down.
Really struggled, right? They ran out of cap room. They had to move a bunch of guys out. But as the cap went up, right, Crosby deal became more adjustable. Now, at the end of the day, he's not going to complain about money, and he's. But he's
going to be just fine.
But you think about it, David. They built an arena around him in Pittsburgh.
There's no question.
That franchise's value has doubled.
Well, amazingly enough, that franchise was saved by two individuals over the course of a 30-year period. The first time by Mario Lemieux, because we were going in there and we were playing in front of an empty building.
Right. And Mario, when he took over the ownership, they were in bankruptcy. Every single creditor got paid. Mario made sure that every single creditor, right down to the hardware store.
And was he the most reluctant owner in
Yes.
sports?
He had to get his money back.
It's the only way he was going to get paid.
But the hardware store down the street from their practice rink in South Point,
So what were they getting, rivets there or something?
$24 worth of tape, of painter's tape.
It's great.
They got paid back.
Great.
Awesome stuff. So there you go. There's our all-decade NHL starting lineup. We'd like to hear your views on the.
Well, recap it.
So
If you're just tuning in, if you've just jumped in
if
the
you're ju-
car,
if you just jumped in the car, here's what we got. Dave and I agree. We have Ovechkin, Crosby, Kane up front. We both had Duncan Keith on the blue line. I had Eric Carlson. You had Zdeno Chara.
don't come in front of my net.
And don't stand in front of him when he's shooting. And Carey Price in goal, and Joel Quenneville was our all-star head coach.